The fluorescent lights of the boutique hummed like angry wasps overhead. Nadia pressed her palms against the glass counter, trying to steady the trembling that always came when she had to be around crowds of thin, beautiful people. The saleswoman, blonde, impossibly slender, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, looked her up and down with the kind of assessment that made Nadia's skin crawl. "We don't carry sizes that would accommodate you," the woman said, her voice dripping with false politeness. "Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at a specialty store." Nadia's breath caught. She'd saved for 3 months to afford something nice for her cousin's wedding. 3 months of double shifts at the call center, of eating ramen and skipping lunches, all so she could feel beautiful for one damn day. The dress in the window, a deep emerald that reminded her of her grandmother's stories about Lagos, had called to her. "I just wanted to try. We're very selective about our clientele." The saleswoman's eyes flicked to Nadia's worn sneakers, her discount store jeans. "I'm sure you understand." Heat flooded Nadia's face. She understood perfectly. She'd understood her whole life, from the boys in high school who'd called her Thunder Thighs to her ex-boyfriend Marcus. Now, she wouldn't think about him, not about the night he'd looked at her with disgust and called her a fat pig before leaving her apartment for the last time. That had been 6 months ago. 6 months of therapy she couldn't really afford, of telling herself she was enough, that her worth wasn't measured by a number on a scale. And here she was, right back in that moment, small and ashamed and wanting to disappear. "Perhaps I can help." The voice cut through the boutique like a blade through silk, smooth, accented, dangerous. Every head turned. The man who stood in the doorway didn't walk so much as command space, tall with sharp Korean features and eyes that looked like they'd seen things that would make grown men weep. His suit probably cost more than Nadia made in 6 months. 2 men flanked him, wearing earpieces and expressions that suggested they knew 17 ways to kill someone with a credit card. The saleswoman's face went white. "Mr. Kwan, we weren't expecting—" Clearly. He moved toward Nadia with precise, measured steps. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, meant only for her. "Are you being treated poorly?" Nadia should have said no, should have laughed it off, made excuses, scurried away like she always did. But something in his eyes, something that looked almost like recognition, like he knew exactly what it felt like to be judged and found wanting, made her tell the truth. "She said they don't carry my size." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He turned to the saleswoman, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Show me your most expensive dress. In her size. Now." "Sir, I don't think we have—" "Then you'll call every boutique in Chicago until you find one that does, and while you're at it, you'll apologize to this woman for the insult you've just given her." The saleswoman stammered something that might have been an apology. The man, Mr. Kwan apparently, pulled out a black card and set it on the counter with a decisive click. "Whatever she wants. Send the bill to my office." He turned to Nadia. "And you, don't ever let anyone make you feel less than magnificent." Then he was gone, disappearing through the door with his security detail, like some kind of avenging angel in Italian leather. Nadia stood frozen, her heart hammering against her ribs. The saleswoman was suddenly all smiles and helpfulness, practically tripping over herself to bring out dresses in Nadia's size. But Nadia barely noticed. She was thinking about the stranger's eyes, about the way he'd looked at her like she mattered, like she was worth defending. Who was he? And why did she feel like her entire world had just tilted on its axis? If you've ever been made to feel invisible because of how you look, like this video and subscribe to Love and Tension to see what happens when Nadia discovers who her mysterious protector really is, because trust me, this story is about to get dangerous. 3 days later, Nadia still couldn't stop thinking about the man in the boutique. She'd gone home with 4 dresses she'd been too stunned to refuse, each one more beautiful than the last. The emerald one fit like it had been made for her curves, hugging her hips and flowing elegantly to the floor. For the first time in months, she'd looked in the mirror and felt something other than shame. But curiosity gnawed at her. Mr. Kwan. She'd Googled the name and found nothing concrete, just whispers on Reddit forums, deleted news articles, a blurred photo from a charity gala. Someone had commented, "Stay away from him unless you want to disappear." Another, "He's not what he seems." Now, standing in her small apartment in Pilsen, Nadia stared at the business card that had arrived by courier that morning. Heavy cardstock, no name, just a phone number embossed in silver and a single word in elegant script. Sanctuary. Her phone buzzed. Her best friend, Keisha. "Girl, you coming to Devon's party tonight? Open bar, and I heard some very eligible bachelors will be there." Nadia hesitated. Parties meant judgment, meant men looking through her like she was invisible, meant feeling like she was taking up too much space. But Keisha had been her rock through the breakup with her ex, had held her while she cried, had reminded her over and over that she deserved better. "I'll be there," she typed back. She chose the emerald dress. The party was in Lincoln Park, at a renovated warehouse that had probably cost more to rent for one night than Nadia's annual salary. The space dripped with wealth, crystal chandeliers, servers in crisp white shirts carrying champagne on silver trays, a live jazz band in the corner playing something smoky and sophisticated. Nadia felt the familiar tightening in her chest as she walked in. Several women glanced at her, their expressions ranging from polite indifference to barely concealed disdain. One whispered to her companion, and they both laughed. "There you are!" Keisha appeared in a flash of red silk, pulling Nadia into a hug. "You look amazing. That dress is everything. Thanks to a stranger with more money than sense. You still haven't figured out who he is?" "No, but—" The room shifted. Nadia felt it before she saw him, a ripple of awareness, conversation stopping mid-sentence, people turning. Mr. Kwan entered with the same quiet authority he'd had in the boutique. Tonight he wore all black, his jacket tailored to perfection, a tattoo peeking out from his collar that looked like dragon scales. And he was looking directly at her. "Oh, shit," Keisha breathed. "That's Juan Kwan. Nadia, he's—" But Kwan was already moving toward them, parting the crowd like Moses in the Red Sea. Up close, Nadia could see the scar that traced his left eyebrow, the silver ring on his right hand that looked like it had seen violence. "You wore the dress," he said, and there was something warm in his voice, almost proud. Yes, thank you, for everything. I tried to find a way to pay you back, but—" He waved a hand dismissively. "It was a gift. You owe me nothing." His eyes swept over her face, searching. "Are you enjoying the party?" "Honestly, I was about to leave." "Too many vultures?" The corner of her mouth lifted. "Something like that." He extended his hand. "Walk with me. There's a balcony with a better view and fewer jackals." Nadia glanced at Keisha, who nodded frantically, her eyes wide. Against every instinct that screamed this man was dangerous, Nadia took his hand. His grip was warm, steady. He led her through the crowd to a private balcony overlooking the Chicago skyline. The city sprawled before them, lights glittering like scattered diamonds. "Why are you being nice to me?" Nadia asked, because the question had been burning in her chest for 3 days. Kwan was silent for a moment, his profile sharp against the night sky. "My mother was a big woman. Beautiful, strong, with a laugh that could fill a room, but people treated her like she was worthless because of her size. When she died, I was 14, I made a promise that I would never let anyone diminish someone the way she was diminished." The confession hung between them, raw and honest. "I'm sorry," Nadia said softly, "about your mother. And I'm sorry about whatever bastard made you think you needed to shrink yourself to be loved." Nadia's throat tightened. She hadn't told him about her ex, but somehow he knew. Maybe he saw it in the way she held herself, the armor she wore that had nothing to do with clothing. "He called me a fat pig the last night we were together. Said he couldn't, that I was too much for him to handle in every way." Kwan's expression went deadly cold. "His name." "What?" "Tell me his name, and I'll make sure he regrets every word." It should have scared her, the casual way he offered violence like some men offered flowers. But instead, something fierce and vindictive rose in Nadia's chest, a part of her that wanted to see her ex suffer the way he made her suffer. "Marcus Chen," she whispered. "But you can't—" "I can and I will. Not because you asked, but because men who abuse women need to understand there are consequences. "Who are you?" The question came out barely above a breath. Quan turned to face her fully, and in the moonlight he looked almost ethereal, dangerous, beautiful. "I'm someone who operates outside the law," he said quietly. "Someone who controls things that would terrify you if you knew the details. But I'm also someone who believes in a code. Protect the innocent, punish the cruel, and never ever harm those who can't defend themselves. You're a criminal, yes." The honesty was startling. No deflection, no pretty lies. "I should leave," Nadia said, but she didn't move. "You should," Quan agreed. "I'm the last person someone like you should be around. I live in shadows and violence, and everyone I touch gets stained by it eventually." "Then why did you approach me? Why buy me dresses? Why tell me about your mother?" His eyes held hers, and for the first time since the boutique, she saw vulnerability in them. "Because when I saw you in that store, trying to hold on to your dignity while that woman tore you down, I saw someone worth protecting. And I've been in this business long enough to know that worth is rare, too rare to ignore." Music drifted from the party inside, something slow and aching. Nadia's heart hammered in her chest. Every logical part of her brain screamed to run, to get as far away from this man and his dangerous world as possible. But the part of her that had been invisible her whole life, that had been mocked and diminished and told she was too much, that part wanted to stay, wanted to be seen by someone who looked at her like she was precious. "One question," she said, "and I want the truth, always. The things you do they hurt innocent people?" Quan considered this carefully. "I run networks that some would call illegal. I move money, influence, sometimes weapons. But I have rules. No human trafficking, no drugs that destroy communities, no harming civilians. The people I hurt are predators, parasites, those who prey on the weak. I'm not a good man, Nadia, but I'm not evil either." It was the most honest answer anyone had ever given her. Not a justification, not an excuse, just the truth laid bare for her to judge. "I don't know what to do with you," she admitted. "Then don't do anything. Just let me be in your orbit for a while. Let me make sure you're safe, that you're respected, and when you're ready to walk away, I'll let you go. No strings, no threats." "Why would you do that?" His hand came up, hovering near her face, but not quite touching, as if he was afraid she might shatter. "Because I think you might be the first truly good thing I've encountered in a very long time, and even someone like me needs to believe goodness still exists." Before Nadia could respond, shouting erupted from inside. Glass shattered. Someone screamed. Quan moved instantly, putting himself between Nadia and the door. His hand went inside his jacket, and when it emerged, he was holding a gun, matte black, efficient, terrifying. "Stay behind me," he ordered, his voice transformed from gentle to lethal in a heartbeat. The balcony door burst open. A man stumbled through, wild-eyed, waving a pistol. Two more followed, wearing ski masks. The party inside had descended into chaos, guests screaming, running, ducking behind furniture. "Everyone stays calm, nobody dies," the first gunman shouted. "Wallets, jewelry, phones, now." His eyes landed on Quan, and Nadia saw the exact moment he recognized him. The gunman's face went white beneath his mask. "Oh, fuck, we didn't know. This wasn't supposed to be your territory." "But it is," Quan said, his voice like ice over steel. "And you just made a very fatal mistake." Everything happened in seconds. Quan moved with inhuman speed, disarming the first gunman with a brutal efficiency that left the man howling on the ground, his wrist bent at an unnatural angle. The other two raised their weapons, but men in black suits, Quan's security detail, materialized from the shadows, subduing them before they could fire. Nadia stood frozen, her back pressed against the balcony railing, watching the man who'd been gentle and vulnerable moments ago transform into something terrifying. Quan pressed his gun to the first gunman's temple. "You chose the wrong party, the wrong city, the wrong life." "Please," the man sobbed. We needed money." So you terrorize innocent people? Kwan's finger tightened on the trigger. Don't! Nadia's voice cut through the violence, surprising herself. Kwan turned to her, his expression unreadable. Don't kill him, Nadia said, her voice steadier now. Don't kill him because he deserves mercy, but because you do. You said you protect the innocent. Prove it. Let the law handle this. For a long, terrible moment, she thought he might ignore her, but then he lowered the gun, stepped back, and nodded to his men. Call the police. Anonymous tip. Make sure these 3 disappear into the system for a very long time. The gunmen were dragged away. The party inside was a mess of sobbing guests and shattered glass. Kwan's security team moved through the space with practiced efficiency, calming people, gathering statements, making problems disappear. Kwan returned to Nadia on the balcony. He looked exhausted suddenly, the adrenaline draining from his system. You stopped me, he said quietly. You were about to become the thing you claim you're not. Maybe I already am that thing. Nadia took a breath, her whole body shaking from the aftermath of terror. Then why did you listen to me? He had no answer for that. Or maybe he did, and it scared him too much to say it aloud. I should take you home, he finally said. This world, my world, it's not safe for you. And if I want to understand it anyway? His eyes searched hers, looking for something. Certainty, maybe, or courage, or foolishness. Then you're braver than I gave you credit for. And far more reckless. A black SUV pulled up outside. Kwan extended his hand again, and this time when Nadia took it, she knew she was choosing something dangerous, something that might destroy her. But for the first time in her life, she felt like someone saw her, really saw her, and thought she was worth the risk. As they drove through Chicago's glittering streets, Nadia's mind raced. She'd wanted to feel beautiful for one night. Instead, she'd stumbled into a world of violence and power, protected by a man who was equal parts savior and threat. And the terrifying part, she wasn't sure she wanted to leave. The question that burned in her chest as the city lights blurred past, what happened when someone like her, ordinary, broken, still healing, collided with someone like him, extraordinary, dangerous, and impossibly alone? She was about to find out. The SUV glided through Chicago like a shark through dark water, silent, predatory, unstoppable. Nadia sat in the back seat next to Kwan, hyper-aware of every inch of space between them. His security detail rode in front, separated by tinted glass that probably cost more than her car. Where do you live? Kwan asked, his voice softer now, the lethal edge gone. Pilsen, the blue building on 18th Street. He nodded to the driver, and the SUV changed course. Nadia watched the city pass, her city, the one she'd grown up in, worked in, cried in. It looked different from inside this vehicle, like she was observing life from behind bulletproof glass. That man, she said quietly, the one who tried to rob the party, you would have killed him. Yes, without hesitation, yes. Kwan turned to face her, and in the dim light from the street lamps, his features were all sharp angles and shadow. Does that frighten you? It should have. It absolutely should have. But Nadia had spent her whole life being afraid. Afraid of judgment, of rejection, of taking up too much space. This fear felt different somehow. Cleaner, more honest. It makes me wonder who you've killed before, she said quietly, and whether they deserved it. Some did, some didn't. That's the nature of this life. Lines blur, and you make choices in seconds that you have to live with for years. Do you regret it? The killing? He considered this, his gaze distant. I regret the ones who were innocent, the collateral damage, but the predators, the men who hurt women and children, who poison communities for profit? No, I sleep fine after those. The honesty was brutal and refreshing. Nadia had spent too much time with people who lied prettily, who hid their cruelty behind smiles and excuses. Her ex had been a master of it, telling her he loved her while systematically destroying her self-worth, framing his abuse as concern. Marcus, she said suddenly, my ex, what are you going to do to him? Kwan's expression hardened. What would you like me to do? I asked first. A ghost of smile touched his lips. Fair enough. I was planning to have a conversation with him, make it very clear that insulting you, degrading you, treating you like you were less than human, those actions have consequences. Nothing permanent, but memorable enough that he'll think twice before abusing another woman. You mean you'll hurt him? Yes. She should have been horrified. should have told him to stop, that violence solved nothing, that she'd moved on. But the vindictive part of her, the part that still woke up some nights remembering Marcus's disgusted face, his cruel words, that part wanted him to hurt the way he hurt her.
"I won't stop you," she whispered. Quan reached across the seat and took her hand. His palm was warm, calloused, surprisingly gentle. "This doesn't make you a bad person, Nadia. Wanting justice, even rough justice, for the pain someone caused you, that's human. Is that what you tell yourself, to justify what you do? No, I don't justify anything. I simply accept that I'm a weapon pointed at other weapons. Someone has to be." The SUV pulled up outside her building, a modest 3-story walk-up in a neighborhood that was slowly gentrifying. Quan glanced at the building, taking in details she knew he'd memorize. The broken lock on the front door, the inadequate lighting, the lack of security cameras. "This isn't safe," he said. "It's what I can afford. I could—" "No," Nadia cut him off firmly. "I'm not moving into some penthouse you own. I'm not becoming whatever you're thinking of making me." His eyebrows rose slightly. "And what do you think I want to make you? I don't know. A mistress? A pet project? The good girl who justifies your bad deeds? What if I just want to make sure you're alive tomorrow?" The sincerity in his voice made her chest tight. She unbuckled her seatbelt, turned to face him fully. "Why me, Quan? There are 1,000 women in this city who need protecting. Why am I special?" He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible over the SUV's engine. "Because when you looked at me tonight, after the shooting, after you saw what I really am, you didn't look away. You looked at me like I was still human. Do you know how rare that is?" Nadia's breath caught. In that moment, she saw past the expensive suit, the gun, the power. She saw a man who'd been treated like a monster so long he'd almost forgotten he wasn't one. "You listened to me," she said. "When I told you not to kill that man, you could have ignored me, but you didn't, because you were right. And because your voice, it cut through the rage like nothing else could." They sat in the darkness of the SUV, 2 damaged people circling each other like planets in uncertain orbit. Nadia knew she should get out, should run from this man and his dangerous world. But she'd been running her whole life, from pain, from judgment, from herself. Maybe it was time to stop. "I want to see you again," she said. "But not like this, not with guns and guards and secrets. I don't know how to be any other way." "Then learn. If you want me in your life, you learn to exist in mine too. Coffee shops, normal restaurants, walks in the park. Can you do that?" Quan's lips curved into something almost like a genuine smile. "For you? I'll try. Trying is enough." She opened the car door, stepped out into the cool Chicago night. Before she could walk away, Quan called after her. "Nadia?" She turned. "Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for seeing me first." She walked into her building, feeling his eyes on her until she disappeared from view. In her apartment, she collapsed on her couch, her mind spinning. What had she just done? Invited a criminal into her life? Agreed to date a man who killed people without hesitation? But when she closed her eyes, she didn't see the violence. She saw the way he'd looked at her in the boutique, like she mattered. The way he'd shared his pain about his mother. The way he'd listened when she asked him not to kill. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Millennium Park, by the Bean. I'll be the one without bodyguards. HK. Nadia smiled beside herself. Then she noticed another text, this one from Keisha. "Girl, what the actual hell? Call me immediately. Do you know who that man is?" Nadia called. Keisha picked up on the first ring. "Are you insane? Juan Quan is not some charming businessman. He's the head of one of the most powerful Korean crime syndicates in the Midwest. People disappear around him, Nadia. Important people. People who cross him or his interests. He's not like that with me. Because you're useful to him, or because he wants something. Men like that don't just help random women out of the goodness of their hearts. His mother was... I don't care if his mother was Mother Teresa. This man is dangerous." Nadia took a breath, trying to organize her thoughts. "Keisha, I know you're worried, and you're right to be,
But for the first time in months, someone looked at me and didn't see a fat black girl who should be grateful for scraps. He saw me, really saw me. And yes, he's dangerous, but maybe I need dangerous right now. What you need is therapy, not a gangster boyfriend. I have therapy, and he's not my boyfriend. Yet, Keisha said darkly. Look, I love you, and I know Marcus did a number on your head, but this is not the way to heal. This is the way to end up dead in Lake Michigan. I'll be careful. Nadia, I promise, I'll be smart about this, but I'm not walking away. Not yet. Keisha sighed, long and defeated. Fine, but I'm tracking your location, and if you disappear, I'm calling every cop in Chicago. Deal. They hung up. Nadia sat in her quiet apartment, the emerald dress still on, feeling like she'd crossed some invisible threshold. Her old life, the one where she was invisible and safe, lay behind her. Ahead was uncertainty, danger, and a man who might destroy her, or save her, or both. The next day she met him at Millennium Park. Quan stood by the Cloudgate sculpture, wearing jeans and a simple black t-shirt that somehow still looked like it cost a fortune. No bodyguards, as promised, though Nadia suspected they were nearby, watching from a distance. "You came," he said, and there was genuine relief in his voice. "You doubted me? I doubted I deserved you showing up." They walked through the park, blending into the crowd of tourists and locals. For an hour, they were just two people talking about Chicago, about food, about the absurdity of modern art. Quan was surprisingly funny when he let his guard down, with a dry wit that caught Nadia off balance. "Tell me about your work," he said as they sat on a bench overlooking the lake. "It's boring. I answer calls at a tech support center, help people reset passwords and fix printers." "You're good at it?" "I'm efficient. I don't love it, but it pays the bills." "What would you do if money wasn't an issue?" No one had ever asked her that. Nadia thought about it, watching the sunlight dance on Lake Michigan's surface. "I'd study, maybe. Anthropology. I love learning about how people lived, how societies evolved. I'd travel, see the places I've only read about. I'd write, maybe. Nothing fancy, just stories about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Why don't you? Student loans from a degree I didn't finish, rent, life. Dreams cost money I don't have." Quan was quiet for a moment. "What if I told you I could make that possible? I'd tell you I'm not a charity case. What if it wasn't charity? What if it was investment? You study, you learn, you write, and maybe sometimes you help me understand things from your perspective. You remind me what it means to be good." Nadia turned to look at him. "You want to pay for my education in exchange for being your conscience? When you say it like that, it sounds transactional. Isn't it? Maybe. Or maybe I'm selfish enough to want someone in my life who challenges me, who keeps me from becoming the monster everyone thinks I already am." It was the most vulnerable she'd seen him, this powerful, dangerous man asking her, ordinary, broken Nadia, to save him from himself. "I'll think about it," she said. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city breathe around them. For a moment, Nadia let herself imagine a different life, one where she studied ancient civilizations in the morning and came home to a man who saw her worth in the evening, one where she wasn't defined by the number on a scale or the cruelty of an ex-boyfriend. Her phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" Heavy breathing. Then a voice, distorted and mechanical. "Tell Quan he can't protect everyone, especially not his new toy." The line went dead. Nadia's hand shook. Quan was already on his feet, his entire demeanor transformed back into the predator she'd seen at the party. "What did they say?" She told him. His expression went dark, murderous. "This is why I told you to stay away. My enemies, they'll use you to get to me. They'll hurt you just to prove they can." "Who was it?" "Could be anyone. I've made enough enemies in this city." He pulled out his phone, barked orders in rapid Korean. Within seconds, 3 black SUVs appeared on the street beside them. "I'm taking you somewhere safe, now." "I have work tomorrow. I can't just—" "Nadia." He gripped her shoulders, his eyes intense. "Someone just threatened to hurt you because of me. Your apartment isn't safe. Your routine isn't safe. Until I figure out who's behind this, you're coming with me. This is exactly what they want, to disrupt your life, to make you react." "And if I don't react and you die, then what?"
The raw anguish in his voice stopped her protests. I won't let another person I care about get hurt because of who I am. Another person. The words hung between them, heavy with history she didn't know. Okay, she said quietly, but just until it's safe, and you tell me everything. Who's threatening me and why? Deal. They climbed into the SUV. As they drove through Chicago's streets, Nadia watched her normal life recede in the rearview mirror. She thought about calling Keisha, about telling her friend she'd been right, that this was exactly the disaster she'd predicted. But she also thought about the way Quan had looked when he thought she might be in danger, like his world would end if she was hurt. No one had ever looked at her like that before, like she was worth protecting, like losing her would matter. And that, more than anything, was why she stayed. The safe house was a brownstone in Hyde Park, tucked away on a quiet street lined with oak trees. From the outside, it looked like any other upscale home. Inside, it was a fortress, reinforced doors, security cameras in every corner, panic rooms, and enough weaponry to start a small war. Quan showed Nadia to a bedroom on the second floor. It was surprisingly comfortable. King-sized bed with soft linens, a window overlooking a garden, books on the shelves. "I'll be downstairs coordinating with my people," he said. "If you need anything—" "Who did you lose?" Nadia interrupted. He froze in the doorway. "Earlier you said another person. Someone you cared about got hurt because of you. Who was it?" Quan's jaw tightened. For a moment she thought he'd refuse to answer. But then he walked back into the room, sat on the edge of the bed, his shoulders heavy with memory. "Her name was Min Ji, my younger sister. She was 17, brilliant, wanted to be a doctor." His voice was carefully controlled, each word measured. "I'd just taken over my father's organization after he died. I was 24, arrogant, thought I was untouchable. A rival syndicate. They kidnapped Min Ji to force my hand, to make me give up territory." Nadia's stomach dropped. She knew how this story ended. "I negotiated. I gave them everything they wanted, but they killed her anyway, just to prove they could. I found her body in an abandoned warehouse 3 days later." His hands clenched into fists. "That's when I learned the most important lesson of this life. Caring about people makes you vulnerable, and vulnerability gets people killed. But you care about me anyway." "Yes, which is why you're in danger." Nadia sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. "I'm not your sister, Quan, and I'm not some fragile thing that'll shatter at the first sign of trouble. I survived, Marcus, survived years of being treated like I was worthless. I'm stronger than I look." He turned to her, and the grief in his eyes was staggering. "Strength doesn't matter when someone puts a bullet in your head. Then teach me how to survive in your world. That's not, if I'm already in danger, I might as well know how to defend myself. Stop trying to protect me by keeping me ignorant." Quan studied her face, searching for something. Whatever he found made him nod slowly. "Okay, tomorrow we start training. Basic self-defense, situational awareness, how to spot a tail. But tonight you rest." He stood to leave. Nadia caught his hand. "Stay, please. Just sit with me for a while. I don't want to be alone with my thoughts right now." He hesitated, then settled back onto the bed. They sat in silence, hands intertwined, watching the shadows lengthen across the room. Nadia felt the warmth of his body beside hers, solid and real, and allowed herself to feel safe for the first time since the phone call. "Can I ask you something?" she said quietly. "Always. The things you've done, the violence, the crimes, do you think you can ever come back from that? Be a normal person?" Quan was quiet for a long time. "I don't know. I've been this for so long, I'm not sure there's anything else left. But when I'm with you, I remember what it felt like to want something other than power and control. You make me want to be better. That's a lot of pressure to put on someone you just met." "I know. I'm sorry." "Don't be. I need you to understand that I can't fix you. I can be here, I can challenge you, but your redemption, that's your work, not mine." His lips curved into a sad smile. "You're wiser than you give yourself credit for. Trauma makes you either weak or wise. I chose wise." They fell into comfortable silence again. Eventually, exhaustion claimed Nadia, and she dozed off sitting up.
her head tilting onto Kwan's shoulder. She woke hours later to find herself tucked under the covers, Kwan gone, but a note on the nightstand. Found the source of the threat, handling it. Don't leave the house. HK. Nadia's stomach clenched. She grabbed her phone. 3:47 a.m. Where had he gone? What was he doing? She climbed out of bed, wrapped a robe around herself, and went downstairs. A man sat in the living room, one of Kwan's security detail. He stood when he saw her. Ms. Nadia, you should be sleeping. Where is he? Handling business. He'll return by morning. What kind of business? The man's expression was carefully neutral. The kind you don't need to know about. Which meant violence, which meant Kwan was out there, possibly getting hurt, possibly hurting others, all because someone had threatened her. The thought made her sick. She couldn't sleep. Instead, she wandered the brownstone, examining Kwan's world. The bookshelves held an eclectic mix: military strategy, Korean history, philosophy, classic literature. In a drawer, she found photographs. A young Kwan with a beautiful girl who must have been Min Ji, both of them laughing at some private joke. His mother, as he'd described, a larger woman with kind eyes and that laugh-filled face. In his office, she found maps of Chicago marked with territories, ledgers filled with coded numbers, phones that probably communicated only with burner lines. This was the architecture of a criminal empire laid bare. She should have been terrified, should have been planning her escape. Instead, she felt a strange clarity. Kwan wasn't pretending to be something he wasn't. He'd been honest about his life, his crimes, his capacity for violence, and he'd listened when she'd asked him not to kill, had shown her vulnerability, had trusted her with his pain. How many people could say that about the men in their lives? Dawn broke slowly over Chicago. Nadia was in the kitchen, making coffee with beans she'd found in the freezer, when she heard the front door open. Kwan appeared, his clothes rumpled, a cut above his left eye, blood on his knuckles. "You're hurt," she said, moving toward him immediately. "It's nothing." But he swayed slightly, and she saw the exhaustion written in every line of his body. "Sit, I'll clean you up." He didn't argue. Nadia found a first aid kit, led him to the kitchen table, and began tending his wounds with steady hands. The cut above his eye wasn't deep, but it would leave a scar. His knuckles were split and swollen. "Did you find them?" she asked quietly, dabbing antiseptic on the cut. "Yes." "And? They won't be bothering you again." "Did you kill them?" "No, but I made it very clear what would happen if they ever came near you. Sometimes the threat of violence is more effective than violence itself." Nadia finished cleaning his wounds, but she didn't step away. Kwan reached up, caught her hand, pressed it against his cheek. "You shouldn't have to do this," he said. "You shouldn't have to patch up a violent man in the middle of the night. Maybe not, but here we are. You could leave, right now, walk out that door, and I'd make sure you're protected from a distance. You don't have to be part of this. And if I want to be?" His eyes met hers, vulnerable and fierce at once. "Then it means danger will always be close. It means looking over your shoulder, wondering if today's the day someone uses you to hurt me. It means accepting that I've done terrible things and will probably do more. It means—" Nadia kissed him. It was impulsive, reckless, driven by a need she couldn't name. His lips were soft, warm, tasting faintly of copper and coffee. For half a second he froze, shocked. Then his hands came up to cup her face, and he kissed her back with a desperation that made her knees weak. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kwan pressed his forehead against hers. "I can't be gentle with you forever," he whispered. "Eventually, you'll see the worst of me. Then show me now. Show me the worst so I can decide if the best is worth it." He pulled back, studying her face. "You don't know what you're asking. Then tell me. What's the worst thing you've ever done?" The question hung between them, heavy and dangerous. Kwan's expression went dark, haunted. "I tortured a man once," he said quietly. "He'd been running a trafficking ring, selling women and children. I found him, brought him to a place where no one could hear him scream, and I spent 3 days making him suffer before I finally put a bullet in his brain." He watched her face, waiting for the horror, the judgment, the inevitable disgust. Instead, Nadia asked, "Did you save the women and children?" "Yes, 14 of them. Got them medical care, documents, safe passage to new lives. Then you did what needed to be done. Most people wouldn't see it that way. I'm not most people. I'm a black woman who's been treated like garbage her whole life because of how I look. I know what it's like when no one protects you, when the system fails and you're left to survive alone. If you stopped those men from hurting vulnerable people, then maybe you're not the monster you think you are. Kwan's expression cracked, just for a moment, and she saw the man beneath the armor, scared, lonely, desperate to believe he could be something more than his worst deeds. "I don't deserve you," he said hoarsely. "Probably not, but I don't deserve to spend my life being invisible either, so maybe we're both reaching for something we shouldn't have." He kissed her again, slower this time, tender and aching. When his hands moved to her waist, she didn't pull away. When he lifted her onto the kitchen counter, she wrapped her legs around him. When he whispered against her neck that they should stop, she shook her head. "I spent my whole life being told I was too much," she said. "Too big, too loud, too demanding. I'm tired of shrinking myself. If I want this, want you, I'm taking it. Nadia, unless you don't want me. God, I want you. But nothing. I'm a grown woman making a choice, so either take me to bed or let me go." Kwan searched her eyes one last time, looking for doubt. Finding none, he lifted her off the counter, cradling her against his chest like she weighed nothing. He carried her upstairs to his bedroom, darker than hers, simpler, with windows overlooking the garden. He laid her on the bed with reverence, like she was something precious that might break. His hands moved over her body slowly, memorizing every curve, every soft place. "Please," she whispered, "be gentle. I haven't done this before." He froze. "You're a virgin?" "No, but I haven't done this, been with someone who looks at me like I'm beautiful, like I matter. So please, be gentle with that part of me, the part that's still learning to believe I'm worthy of this." Understanding flooded his face. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "You are worthy," he murmured between kisses. "You are beautiful, and I will spend all night showing you exactly how much you matter." And he did. Have you ever been afraid to let someone see the real you? All your scars, all your fears? Drop a comment telling me which character you relate to more. Nadia, learning to take up space, or Kwan, trying to be better than his past. And don't forget to subscribe to Love and Tension because this story's about to take a turn no one sees coming. Morning light filtered through the bedroom curtains, soft and golden. Nadia woke wrapped in expensive sheets in Kwan's arms, feeling simultaneously vulnerable and powerful. He was still asleep, his face peaceful in a way it never was when he was awake. Without the tension, the constant vigilance, he looked almost young. She traced the tattoo on his shoulder, a dragon in traditional Korean style, breathing fire that curved down his ribs. Each scale was meticulously detailed, a work of art that had probably taken dozens of hours. His eyes opened, immediately alert despite having slept only a few hours. "Morning," she whispered. "Good morning." His hand came up to cup her face, thumb stroking her cheek. "How do you feel?" "Different. Good different." They lay in comfortable silence, neither wanting to break the spell. But reality had a way of intruding, and Kwan's phone buzzed insistently on the nightstand. He glanced at it, his expression hardening. "I have to take this." "Go ahead." He kissed her forehead, then climbed out of bed, pulling on pants before answering in rapid Korean. His tone was sharp, commanding. Whatever news he was receiving wasn't good. Nadia used the bathroom, borrowed one of his shirts, it hung on her like a dress, and went downstairs to make breakfast. She was scrambling eggs when Kwan appeared, fully dressed, his face grim. "I have to go out for a few hours. There's been a development." "What kind of development?" He hesitated, clearly debating how much to tell her. "The people who threatened you, they were working for someone bigger, someone who's been trying to move into my territory for months. This was a test, to see how I'd react. And now they know I'll burn their entire operation to the ground if they come near you again. But it also means they know you're important to me, which makes you a target." Nadia set down the spatula, turned to face him fully. "So what do we do? You stay here, under guard, until I can neutralize the threat permanently. For how long?" "As long as it takes." She could see the logic, but the idea of being locked away, hidden like a secret, made her skin crawl. She'd spent too much of her life making herself small, invisible. Is there another option? Quan crossed to her, took her hands in his. Not one that doesn't put you in direct danger. What if I could help? His eyebrows rose. Help how? I don't know yet. But you said yourself, I see things differently than you do. I challenge your thinking. Maybe I can help you find a solution that doesn't involve more violence. He studied her face, and she could see the war happening behind his eyes, the desire to protect her, fighting with respect for her agency. Let me think about it, he finally said. In the meantime, please, stay here. My best people are watching the house. Fine, but Quan, come back safe. Always. He kissed her, lingering like he was memorizing the taste of her lips, then left. The house felt cavernous without him, despite the security personnel stationed throughout. Nadia finished making breakfast, ate alone, then wandered through the brownstone with restless energy. In Quan's office, she found herself drawn to the maps again. She'd grown up in Chicago, knew its neighborhoods intimately from a ground-level perspective that Quan, wealthy, powerful, probably didn't have. Looking at his territorial markers, she started to see patterns. The rival organization was pushing in from the northwest, targeting areas with high immigrant populations, areas where people were afraid to go to the police, where community ties were strong but institutional trust was weak, classic predatory behavior. But there was something else. Several of the marked locations were near community centers, churches, places where people gathered. If she were planning to take over a territory, she'd want to control those social hubs, win hearts and minds before resorting to violence. An idea began to form, risky and possibly stupid, but better than an endless cycle of retaliation. When Quan returned that evening, she was waiting with a proposal. You're trying to defend your territory through force, she said without preamble. But what if you could make the community defend it for you? He set down his keys, intrigued despite his exhaustion. I'm listening. These neighborhoods, they don't trust the police, but they trust their own. Community centers, church leaders, business owners. What if you invested in them, not as bribes, but as genuine support? Fund youth programs, fix infrastructure, create jobs, make people's lives better. So when your rivals try to move in, the community pushes back because they have something worth protecting. Quan was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. That would take months, years even. So? You're thinking short-term, reactive. I'm talking long-term, strategic. You said your organization has been around for generations. Act like it. Build something that lasts beyond the next gang war. And what about the immediate threat? You handle that your way. But simultaneously, you start the community investment. Show people you're not just another predator. Show them you're someone who protects what's yours by making it worth protecting. He moved toward her slowly, his eyes intense. You came up with this by looking at my maps? I came up with this by understanding how communities work. I grew up in neighborhoods like these, Quan. I know what people need, what they value. You have the resources, I have the insight. Together, we could actually change things. A smile spread across his face, genuine, delighted. You're brilliant, do you know that? I'm observant. There's a difference. No, you're brilliant. He pulled her into his arms, kissed the top of her head. This is exactly the kind of thinking I need. My world, it's all hammers and nails. You see solutions I'd never consider. So you'll try it? I'll implement it immediately. And Quan, I want you to lead it. She pulled back, startled. What? The Community Investment Program. I want you to design it, oversee it, make it real. I'll provide funding and security, but this is your vision, your project. I don't have any experience with. You have exactly the experience that matters. You know these communities, you understand what they need, and you have the intelligence to make it work. Plus, it gives you a legitimate public role. Businesswoman, community organizer, protection through visibility. Nadia's mind raced. This was far beyond anything she'd imagined when she'd woken up this morning. But the possibility of it, of building something meaningful, of using Quan's resources for genuine good, was intoxicating. Okay, she said, I'll do it. Just like that? Just like that. But I have conditions. His smile widened. Name them. Full transparency about the funding. No money that comes directly from criminal activity. I won't launder your drug money or whatever. Agreed. I have legitimate business interests that can fund this. Second, I make all final decisions about programs and partnerships. You don't interfere unless I ask. Agreed. Third, if at any point I think this is being used to harm people rather than help them, I walk away. No arguments, no consequences. Kwan's expression grew serious. Agreed. But Nadia, walking away means walking away from me, too. This can't be separated from who I am. She'd known that, deep down, but hearing it said aloud made it real, made the choice concrete. I understand, she said quietly, and I'm still in. Relief flooded his face. He kissed her, deep and desperate, and she felt the gratitude in it, the wonder that she was still choosing him despite everything. They spent the evening planning, mapping out initial community centers to partner with, discussing funding mechanisms, brainstorming programs. Nadia felt more alive than she had in years, her mind sharp and engaged, her ideas valued. Around midnight, as they pored over budgets at the kitchen table, Kwan's phone rang. He answered, listened, his expression darkening. When? A pause. How many? Another pause. I'm on my way. He hung up, already moving toward the door. There's been an attack on one of my distribution centers. 3 of my people are dead. Nadia stood, fear clutching her chest. You're going there? Now? I have to. This is direct retaliation. They're escalating. Then let me come with you. Absolutely not. Kwan, no. His voice was steel. This is exactly the kind of situation where you could get caught in crossfire. You stay here where you're safe, but you won't be safe. He crossed back to her, framed her face with his hands. I've been doing this my entire adult life. I know how to survive a gang war, but you're new to this world, and I won't risk you. Tears stung her eyes, frustration and fear warring inside her. You can't ask me to care about you and then expect me to just sit here while you walk into danger. Yes, I can, because that's the price of being with someone like me. His thumb brushed away a tear that had escaped. I'm sorry. I know it's not fair, but this is my world, and I won't compromise your safety to make you feel included. He kissed her one more time, then left. Nadia stood in the empty kitchen, listening to the SUV pull away, feeling helpless and furious and terrified all at once. The waiting was torture. She tried to distract herself with television, with books, with planning more community programs. Nothing worked. Every car that passed made her jump. Every notification on her phone made her heart race. At 4 a.m., her phone finally rang. Kwan's number. Hello? It's me. I'm okay. We're regrouping, but I won't be back until tomorrow. The relief was so intense it made her dizzy. What happened? Nothing you need to know about. But Nadia, this is going to get worse before it gets better. The rival organization, they're not backing down. We're looking at weeks, maybe months of escalating violence. Then we accelerate the community program, give people something to hope for while the war rages around them. You're amazing, you know that. I'm pragmatic, there's a difference. His laugh was tired but genuine. Get some sleep. I'll call you in the morning. Kwan? She stopped herself. The words too big, too soon. I know, he said softly. Me too. They hung up. Nadia climbed back into his bed, buried her face in his pillow that still smelled like him, and let herself cry. For the danger he was in. For the impossible situation they'd stumbled into, for the fact that she was falling in love with a man who might die any day in a hail of bullets, but she didn't regret it. Even knowing the cost, she didn't regret choosing him. 3 weeks passed in a blur of violence and hope, chaos and creation. Kwan's war with the rival organization escalated. There were shootings, bombings, bodies found in abandoned warehouses. The news covered it as gang violence, a territorial dispute between unnamed criminal enterprises. Kwan came home most nights with new bruises, new scars, a haunted look in his eyes that took hours to fade. But simultaneously, Nadia's community program flourished. She partnered with 5 community centers across the contested territories, implementing after-school programs, job training, small business grants. She was careful, transparent. building genuine relationships with community leaders who were initially skeptical of money coming from Kwan's world. Slowly, trust built. Programs launched. Kids who'd been on the verge of gang recruitment instead found mentorship and opportunity. Families who'd been struggling found resources and support. And something unexpected happened. The communities started protecting the centers. When the rival organization tried to vandalize a center in Little Village, neighbors formed a human barrier. When they attempted to intimidate community leaders, local businesses banded together, creating a network of mutual support that was harder to penetrate than any security force. Nadia was at one of the centers in Pilsen when Kwan called with news. "We've reached a stalemate," he said. "They can't push into our territory because the communities won't let them, and we can't push into theirs without massive collateral damage that would destroy everything we've built. So what happens now?" Negotiation. "We're meeting tomorrow to draw new territorial lines, establish a ceasefire." Relief flooded through her. It's over? The immediate crisis is. But Nadia, the larger war never really ends. There will always be someone trying to take what's mine, always another threat on the horizon. I know, but at least we have a moment to breathe. That night, Kwan came home looking more exhausted than she'd ever seen him. They collapsed into bed together, holding each other like anchors in a storm. He fell asleep almost immediately, but Nadia lay awake thinking about the future. She loved him. It was terrifying and exhilarating and completely irrational, but she loved him, loved his brutal honesty, his unexpected tenderness, the way he listened to her ideas like they mattered, loved how he was trying, genuinely trying, to be better than his worst impulses. But she also knew this couldn't last forever, not like this. Eventually, she'd have to choose, his world or her safety, his violence or her peace. The next morning, Kwan woke her with coffee and a serious expression. "We need to talk," he said. Her stomach dropped. That's never a good way to start a conversation. The ceasefire negotiations. They went well, better than expected. We've established new boundaries, agreed to mutual non-aggression. That's good news. So why do you look like someone died? He sat on the edge of the bed, took her hands. Because part of the agreement is that I step back from day-to-day operations. I remain the head of the organization, but I'm no longer visible, no longer the face everyone sees. It's safer for everyone, including you. Meaning? Meaning I'm transferring most of my active duties to my lieutenants. I'll be more hands-off, less involved in the violence. Nadia's heart leapt. That's what you want? It's what I need. These past few weeks, watching you build something good out of my resources, seeing communities thrive instead of suffer, it made me realize I've been doing this wrong. My father, his father, they ruled through fear and violence. But you've shown me another way, a better way. So what will you do instead? He smiled, and it was lighter than she'd ever seen him. Expand the community programs. You've proven the model works. Let's scale it. I want to fund education, small business development, affordable housing. Use the money I've made from crime to repair the damage crime causes. That's huge, Kwan. I know, and I want you to lead it, full time. I'll set up a foundation, legitimate and legal. You'll have a team, resources, complete autonomy. Build the Chicago you want to see. Tears pricked her eyes. You're serious? Completely. I'm tired of being just a destroyer, Nadia. You made me want to create instead. So let's create something that matters. She kissed him, tasting salt from her own tears, feeling hope bloom in her chest like spring flowers after a long winter. But that evening, everything changed. Nadia was at Kwan's office reviewing foundation documents when a courier arrived with a package addressed to her. The security detail scanned it, no explosives, no biological threats, and gave her the all clear. Inside was a leather-bound journal, old and worn, filled with handwritten pages in Korean, and a letter in English in Kwan's distinctive handwriting. Nadia, if you're reading this, it means something has happened to me. This journal belonged to my grandfather, the founder of our organization. It's written in code, a cipher that only family members know. I've been translating it over the years, and what I've discovered is extraordinary. My grandfather wasn't just a criminal, he was a strategist, a philosopher, someone who believed that power should serve the people, not exploit them. This journal contains decades of wisdom: how to build sustainable communities, how to create economies that resist exploitation, how to organize people to protect themselves from predators, both criminal and corporate. I've been trying to follow his vision, but I failed. I became the predator instead of the protector. But you have the intelligence and the heart to do what I couldn't. The cipher key is attached. Decode the journal, learn its lessons, and use them. Build the world my grandfather dreamed of, the one I wasn't strong enough to create. Everything I have, the legitimate businesses, the foundation funds, all of it is yours. Use it wisely. Use it to become the leader these communities deserve. I love you. I should have said it more. Nadia's hands shook as she read and reread the letter. The cipher key was complex, but not impossibly so. A substitution code with mathematical variations. She could crack this. She would crack this. But first, she needed to find Quan and demand to know why he'd written her a letter that sounded like a goodbye. She called his phone. No answer. Called his lieutenants. No one knew where he was. Panic clawed at her throat. Then her phone buzzed with a news alert. Breaking. Major drug trafficking arrest. Federal agents apprehend gang leader. The photo showed Quan, hands cuffed, being led into a federal building by DEA agents. The room spun. Nadia gripped the desk to steady herself, her mind racing. Federal arrest meant years, possibly decades in prison, meant Quan had known this was coming, had planned for it, had left her everything she needed to continue his work without him. The devastation was absolute, but underneath it, burning bright and fierce, was determination. He'd given her a gift, not just the journal, not just the resources, but the chance to build something that would outlast them both. A legacy of protection instead of violence, of community instead of exploitation. She spent the next month decoding the journal, and what she found was revolutionary. Quan's grandfather had developed entire systems for community organization, methods for pooling resources, strategies for negotiating with power structures, techniques for building sustainable local economies that resisted both criminal and corporate exploitation. It was a blueprint for empowerment, written in the coded language of a man who'd lived in shadows but dreamed of light. Nadia threw herself into the work with single-minded focus. She hired a team, community organizers, urban planners, economists, and together they transformed the journal's wisdom into practical programs. She expanded beyond Chicago, creating a network of protected communities across the Midwest. 6 months after Quan's arrest, she stood at a podium in a renovated community center, addressing a crowd of over 300 people, residents, business owners, city officials. The center bore a plaque, Minji Community Center, in memory of those lost to violence. "We gather here today," Nadia began, her voice steady despite the emotion churning in her chest, "to celebrate not just a building, but a vision of communities that protect themselves not through violence, but through collective strength, through mutual support, shared resources, and unwavering commitment to each other's well-being." She spoke about the programs they'd implemented, the lives changed, the cycles of poverty and violence interrupted. She spoke about her grandfather, Quan's grandfather, whose wisdom had guided them. She didn't mention Quan by name, didn't acknowledge the criminal empire that had funded all of this, but when she looked out at the crowd, she saw the truth in their faces. They knew. They knew where the money came from, knew about the man in prison who'd chosen to invest in them rather than exploit them, and they were grateful. More than that, they were inspired. After the speech, a young woman approached Nadia. She looked to be about 20, with eyes that had seen too much too young. "Miss Nadia, I just wanted to say, 3 years ago, I was about to join a gang. I didn't see any other option. But then this center opened, and they gave me a job, training, a chance. Now I'm in college, studying social work. I want to do what you do, help people find better options." Nadia's throat tightened. "What's your name?" "Fatima." "Well, Fatima, when you graduate, come find me. We're always looking for people who understand the communities we serve." The girl's smile was luminous. She hurried away, and Nadia felt the weight of purpose settle over her like a mantle. That evening, alone in her apartment, no longer the small place in Pilsen, but a comfortable space in Hyde Park near the old brownstone, Nadia pulled out the leather journal one more time. She'd decoded every page, internalized every lesson, but she still returned to it sometimes, feeling the weight of history in her hands. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Her heart stuttered. "Hello?" "Quan." Nadia's voice, rougher than she remembered, but unmistakably his. "How are you calling me? You're in federal prison." "I have resources. 10 minutes. That's all they'll give me. Listen carefully." She clutched the phone, tears already streaming down her face. "I decoded the journal. I've been implementing everything." "I know. I've been getting reports. You're extraordinary. You've built something more beautiful than I could have imagined. I miss you." The words broke free before she could stop them. "I miss you too. But Nadia, I need you to understand something. This is where I belong. In here, paying for what I've done. Don't waste your energy trying to get me out. Don't compromise your work for my sake. What you're building out there, that's my redemption. That's how I become something more than my worst deeds." "That's not fair. You don't get to decide." "I do, actually. I pled guilty to everything, accepted a 20-year sentence without parole. It's done. 20 years. She'd be in her 50s when he got out. He'd be nearly 60. "But I love you," she whispered. "I love you too. That's why I'm letting you go. Build your empire, Nadia. Be the leader these communities need. And maybe someday, when I've served my time, if you still want me, I'll be here. Don't promise that. Don't limit yourself to waiting for a man in prison. Live your life. Find happiness. Make the world better. You don't get to tell me what to do with my heart." His laugh was soft, sad. "No, I suppose I don't. Just be magnificent, okay? The way I always knew you could be." "Quan!" "Time's up. Goodbye, Nadia." The line went dead. She sat in the darkness of her apartment, the journal heavy in her lap, tears cooling on her cheeks. The pain was overwhelming, but underneath it was something else, something fierce and unbreakable. He'd given her a gift, not romance, not a fairy tale ending, but something far more valuable: purpose, legacy, the tools to build a better world from the ruins of his violent one. She wouldn't waste it. 3 years later, Nadia stood in front of a mirror, adjusting the blazer of her navy suit. The woman looking back at her bore little resemblance to the insecure call center worker who'd been humiliated in a boutique. This woman was confident, powerful, with eyes that had seen darkness and chosen light anyway. Today, she was testifying before the city council about expanding her community empowerment model citywide. 5 years of work had proven the concept: crime down in protected neighborhoods, graduation rates up, small businesses thriving. Politicians who'd once ignored her now sought her endorsement. Her phone buzzed. A text from Fatima, now her deputy director. Congressman just committed $2 million in federal grants for the expansion. "We did it." Nadia smiled. They had done it. Built something sustainable, something that would outlast any one person. There was a knock at her office door. Her assistant poked her head in. "Ms. Nadia, there's someone here to see you. He says it's personal. I don't have time for walk-ins today. Can you?" "He says his name is Quan, that you'd want to see him." Nadia's heart stopped. Impossible. He still had 17 years on his sentence. She hurried to the reception area and froze. Quan stood there, thinner than she remembered, lines on his face that hadn't been there before, but unmistakably him, unmistakably alive and free. "How?" she breathed. "Good behavior, new evidence that reduced my involvement in certain charges, federal sentencing reform, and possibly a letter from a prominent community leader testifying to the positive impact of my foundation's work." His eyes held hers, searching. "I didn't ask you to do that. I didn't do it for you. I did it because the truth deserves to be told. That you chose a different path, that you tried to make amends." They stood apart, years and trauma and growth between them like a canyon. "I don't expect anything," Quan said quietly. "You've built an incredible life. I needed to see you, to thank you for everything you've done with what I gave you. You turned my grandfather's dream into reality." Nadia studied him. This man who'd seen her when she was invisible, who'd given her the tools to become powerful, who loved her enough to let her go. "Are you staying in Chicago?" "I don't know. Depends on whether there's anything here for me." "Your organization?" "Dissolved. My lieutenants run legitimate businesses now. The empire my family built for 3 generations? Gone. By choice. And what will you do?" He smiled, and it was lighter than she had ever seen it. "I thought maybe I'd volunteer. I hear there's a community organization doing excellent work. Could use someone with my unique skill set. Administrative work, maybe. Nothing high profile. We have a position open for operations coordinator."
It's grunt work, managing logistics, handling crises, supporting the community organizers. Perfect. The pay's terrible. I have investments. I'll manage. They stared at each other, the weight of possibility hanging between them. "I'm not the same person I was," Nadia said. "I'm not that scared woman who needed rescuing. I know. You're the woman who rescued herself and built a movement in the process. And you're not my hero anymore. You're just a man who made terrible choices and is trying to do better. I know, and I'm okay with that." Nadia took a breath, made a decision. "Come back tomorrow for a formal interview. If you're serious about this, about working, about staying clean, about being part of something bigger than yourself, I'll give you a shot. No special treatment because we have history? Absolutely not. You'll work twice as hard as everyone else to prove you've changed. And the first time you slip back into old patterns, you're gone. Fair. And Quan, we're not picking up where we left off. If there's going to be anything between us again, we build it from the ground up, slowly, carefully, with clear eyes about who we both are now." Relief and hope warred on his face. "I wouldn't want it any other way." He left and Nadia returned to her office, her hands shaking slightly. She pulled out the leather journal, now worn from years of use, and flipped to the last page. Her own handwriting, in English. "Legacy isn't what we inherit. It's what we choose to build from the pieces we're given. My legacy is this: a network of strong communities, empowered people, and the knowledge that even from the darkest foundations, something beautiful can grow. I learned this from a criminal who dreamed of redemption, from a grandfather who wrote wisdom in code, from my own journey from invisible to unstoppable. And the greatest gift? Understanding that I was always strong enough. I just needed someone to believe in me first so I could learn to believe in myself. The empire I built isn't one of violence or control. It's an empire of hope, and it will outlast us all." She closed the journal, set it on the shelf beside the plaque that read, "Nadia Okoye, Executive Director, Grandfather Legacy Foundation." Through her window she could see Chicago stretching out in all directions, this city that had seen her lowest moments and her greatest triumphs, communities she'd helped rebuild, lives she'd helped change, and somewhere out there, a man who'd given her the tools to do it all, asking for nothing but the chance to be part of something good. She didn't know if they'd find their way back to each other. Didn't know if love could survive all they'd been through, but she knew this. She was no longer the woman who needed saving. She was the woman who saved herself, and then turned around and saved everyone else. That was legacy enough. What do you think about Nadia's journey? Have you ever had to choose between safety and something or someone that challenged you to grow? Drop a comment sharing which moment in this story hit you the hardest. And if you loved this tale of transformation, hit that subscribe button for love and tension, because stories like this, where ordinary people become extraordinary, are what we're all about. See you in the next one.